Director of recruiting for On3, Chad Simmons. He's always on the road, and this week he's been all around the Southeast, and he got some intel that has shaken up the recruiting world. So I got Chad on this video. We're going to get the latest Simmons scoop. But before we get going, make sure you are subscribed to the best recruiting channel on YouTube right here. And we're almost to 50K. Look at that. You guys can help us. Let's do it. Get us to 50K. Hit subscribe. All right, let's bring on the great Chad Simmons. And Chad, your interview with five-star wide receiver Jamie French kind of shook some things up because he is saying a new school is now out in front. Who is it, and what do you make of this this revelation, really?
Yeah, obviously, I think it's out by now. University of Texas kind of has that lead spot for five-star receiver Jamie French from Mandarin High School in Jacksonville, Florida. And obviously, what was kind of refreshing about Jamie and covering Jamie and talking with Jamie is just how transparent, he is. A lot of guys, and I don't blame him, play the game and really try to create the drama and the hype. But Jamie just cut straight to it, saying, look, man, it's not just Texas on top, but Texas is 1, LSU is 2, Miami is 3. And the other 2, Tennessee and Ohio State, are somewhat behind the pack. So he was very open about that. It's not really, I wouldn't say shocking. We knew every visit he went on this spring, mostly back in April and some in March as well, but really opened his eyes. He had a chance to come back, reflect, look in the mirror, talk to his family, and figure out which one fits the best and how do they feel after all of these visits. And it's not just about Jamie, but it's about his family. He takes that into account, who recruits his family well, who they feel good about. And it's a total family, I feel like, feels good about Texas right now. Chris Jackson's doing a great job, the receivers coach, Steve Sarkisian, the offense, and what Texas is doing on the field. But right now, it's clear, and Jamie says it himself, Texas is the team to beat.
So do you think that he's just reactionary and he's just saying Texas is the team to beat because he was at Texas 2 or 3 weeks ago? Because if you take a step back and you look at his recruitment, right, he was committed to Alabama. He decommits when Nick Saban retires. Now Alabama's out of it. In the wake of his decommitment, you heard that Florida State was the team to beat. He said that they were in the lead. Then it was Ohio State. Then he goes to Tennessee. He says Tennessee's definitely in my top 3. We don't hear about Tennessee anymore. Ohio State not in it. Florida State not in it. Bama not in it. So is he just reacting to recent visits, or do you think he's learning throughout the process who he truly likes and what he wants to do in terms of making a decision?
Yeah, I think it's the latter, Josh. I think really things are starting to become, pretty clear to him what he's looking for, what's most important, who's most important, and really starting to come into focus about maybe what schools fit him the best. And obviously, like he said to me, you can't go wrong, when you're a wide receiver looking at Texas, LSU, Ohio State, Tennessee, the way they throw the ball. And he does like Miami a lot. He loves Kevin Beard. It's an in-state program. Yeah. Florida and Florida State haven't thrown in the towel. The other 2 in-state schools, they're still in somewhat communication, but a lot of ground to make up. They want to become a factor in this race. But I think really that, I think any recruit can be, like you said, reactionary to a visit. You're going to love it. You get the red carpet rolled out for you each and every visit. Mm-hmm. So you're going to come off that trip with a high. That's why I like to talk to kids maybe 2, 3, 4 days after a visit to see, hey, are you still feeling the same way about that school now as you were when you left that campus, to see if it's settled in or if it was, like you said, reactionary. But I think Jamie is really starting to figure out what's most important to him. And right now, Texas checks the most boxes.
Wow. Well, that's a huge development for Texas. And it kind of reminds me of last year's recruitment of 5-star wide receiver Ryan Wingo to Texas. In the beginning of that recruitment, right around this time, Texas was on the outside looking in for Ryan Wingo, but then they get him on campus. They get a foot in the door. Then all of a sudden the momentum just keeps going. And that's kind of how I feel about what's happening right now with Jamie French. Now, Texas fans would be really excited if it stays true, because obviously Ryan Wingo ends up signing with the Longhorns. So we'll see what happens here with Ryan Wingo. Do we still think, Chad, that he's going to decide in October? Because I'm starting to hear some rumors that it could be earlier. I know he's kind of been wishy-washy in terms, but the last time he was on record, he was saying October.
Yeah, I think the goal for Jamie, I think, is to commit before his senior season as of today. I think if obviously the question is, does he take the 4 OVs that he has locked in right now, which is his top 5 outside of Ohio State all has an OV locked in. Does he wait and give Ohio State one more shot, during the season before he makes that decision? He did say to me he would love to get back to Ohio State one last time before he decides, but that's not locked in right now. Could he go back maybe that one open week in July to Columbus, then commit early in August? That's possible as well. But I think for him, the goal right now is to be committed by that first game in August.
Yeah. And hey, right now, everybody is talking about your interview with Jamie French. It's got a lot of people thinking, and we'll just have to see how it plays out. If he's going to make that decision in August, we're only about 2.5 months from his big decision. So we'll just see and continue to watch that one. Let's move on to 5-star offensive tackle Michael Fusi, the number 4 ranked tackle in the country. He told you this week he's moving towards a commitment. Chad, who are the teams to watch in this one? Because I know he has a top group, but let's be real. Who are you watching?
Yeah, I think the main ones are Texas A&M, 2 in-state programs, and you have, I think, Oklahoma, who's been in this from the very beginning with Bill Bedenbaugh. And then I think the new one in this over the last few months has been Missouri's kind of emerged as a major contender. Brennan Jones doing a great job there, offensive line coach. And you can't sleep in Oregon. When I was around Fusi this weekend, he was decked out in the Oregon hat, Oregon pants. He's been there this spring. Doesn't have an OV set to Oregon just yet. He has them set with the other 4 schools I mentioned, but Oregon's definitely working and they're being considered. But I think that the schools to watch, if I had to give you 4, it would be Texas A&M, Oklahoma, and Missouri.
All right. Now, Elias Williams, he's been committed to Georgia for nearly a year. You were by his school this week to talk to him, and he says he's still in contact with a couple schools that are trying to flip him. Who has a shot at flipping Elias Williams, and ultimately, do you think he sticks or flips at Georgia?
Yeah, I would say, based on what he said on the record, I would say Florida State, if there is one school to watch, it would be them because he says they're the ones that will get an OV outside of Georgia. Now, Miami's had a lot of buzz around that as well. He says right now he still communicates with Miami, not as much as Florida State, he said. And they could get an OV, but what he's thinking right now is just the OV on May 31st to Georgia. And then I think he was thinking June 14th, is he didn't know exactly the date, and nobody down there knew exactly when he was going back to Florida State. But he said that he plans to take an OV maybe around that June 14th date to Florida State. Second part of your question, does he stay? I would say yes. I think the connection with Georgia is just too strong. He's a relationship guy. Obviously, the way they use tight ends appeals to him. How they develop tight ends under Todd Hartley appeals to him. His communication with Hartley, Mike Bobo, a South Georgia guy, Kirby Smart, the head coach. I mean, the whole staff recruits Elias. He knows he's very important to Georgia. He talks to other commits in this class, other guys Georgia's recruiting as well. He's a pretty quiet kid, but I think he'd be pretty tough to flip, whether it be Florida State. He wore Florida gloves in the practice I was at. What does that mean? Not a whole lot, but Miami's in there too. But in the end, if I had to predict, I do think he stays with Georgia in this class.
All right, let's talk about another big-time offensive lineman that is now back on the market. 4-star offensive lineman Payton Joseph. He backed off his UF commitment a couple weeks ago, and now there's some teams that are coming into focus, and it sounds like he's setting up some visits. Chad, what did he tell you?
Yeah, he's got 3 OVs, obviously Florida State and LSU, and then Memphis has kind of jumped in this race. And, actually the talk has been around Florida State since he decommitted from the University of Florida. And, I think they're clearly the team to beat, with Alex Atkins, Mike Norvell. He's been to Tallahassee numerous times. He likes the program, the opportunity, the direction the program is going in, winning the ACC championship a year ago. And they're clearly, I think, the favorite. But, I wouldn't sleep completely on Memphis. Ryan Silverfield, obviously, is doing a great job there and building some momentum with some kids in Georgia, specifically, his teammate quarterback, A.J. Hill. A.J. Hill is the one that got Memphis on Payton Joseph's radar. They'll visit together this summer officially. They love to play together on the next level. Will that be a factor in the end? Probably not, but they definitely talk about it. They have that connection. But I think Memphis is in a great spot with A.J. Hill and now Payton Joseph is taking a harder look at them as well. LSU, they're in the mix, maybe not so much where Memphis is right now. We'll see how the visit goes in June. But FSU, I think, is the favorite, with Memphis running a second place right now.
All right. Well, Vernell Brown, wide receiver, 4-star out of the state of Florida. A lot of Ohio State buzz with him early on in this cycle. What are you hearing as we hit the important summer months?
Again, a lot like Jamie Fritchie, I think the end goal is to be committed, this summer, Josh, before his senior season at Orlando Jones High School.
Yeah.
And, if you rewind, 6 to 8 weeks, the buzz was like Jamie French, Ohio State. They were there together on the visit together. They are extremely close friends. They play together on South Florida Express. 7-on-7 team. They're communicating, almost every day as friends about recruiting, what coaches they like, and so on. Right now, I don't think they end up at the same place, but we'll see what happens down the road. I think with Vernell, you have Ohio State, then you have the 3 in-state schools, Florida, Florida State, and Miami. And coming out of OT7 in Dallas, I was at last month, I was starting to kind of paint the picture that he stays home and goes to somewhere in the Sunshine State. I feel even stronger about that now after speaking with Vernell and people in his camp over this past week. I think in the end, Florida, Florida State, Miami, one of those schools keep him at home. I think going into these OVs, he has OVs right now locked in with Florida. He's a Florida Legacy for June 14th, then Florida State for June 21st. Ohio State gets the first OV on May 31st as Miami squeeze one out in there right now. He's keeping that June 7th weekend open because that is the OT7 finals. He'll be in that with South Florida Express. He wants to make that decision sometime probably in July or August. And right now, I think it's a battle with maybe Florida State having a slight edge over the University of Florida.
Wow. Interesting battle shaping up there. Wasn't anticipating it being a big 3 in-state battle. Thought that Ohio State was going to go in and nab one, but we'll see. I'm not counting out the Buckeyes just yet. All right. Last prospect I want to talk to you about is Jordan Young, the number 4 safety in the country. He's ready to take some visits. He announced a top 8 last week, but who's really separating themselves from the pack in this recruitment?
Yeah, I think 2 ACC programs, Josh, are kind of setting the pace in this race heading into a pretty busy summer for Jordan, who doesn't plan to commit before his senior year. We'll see if that changes, but right now he's looking in October on a birthday decision there for him. But I think Florida State and Clemson, they both had him on campus. He likes the coaching staffs. Pat Surtain at Florida State, Mike Norvell's involved as well. Then you have Dabo Sweeney, Mickey Kahn, Mike Reed at Clemson, all recruiting Jordan Young. I think those 2 programs have given him a lot to think about and a lot to like from a culture. I think stability is important to him. He sees Norvell sticking around. Dabo's not going anywhere away from Clemson right now. I think he likes that about those 2 schools. And if there is a school that's kind of snuck in there, that's Michigan. The new staff came in, offered him somewhat, quote unquote, late because of the new staff, but they got him up on campus here recently. First time in Ann Arbor. He now plans to lock in an official visit to Michigan sometime in the fall. And they're kind of a sleeper team. Of course, you have the in-state schools, NC State with Joker Phillips, North Carolina, Mac Brown, Lonnie Galloway involved there. Both those schools are telling Jordan also he can play both ways, receiver, DB, that appeals to him. But right now, again, going back to Florida State and Clemson, I think those 2 have kind of separated from the pack heading into the summer.
All right, Chad, really good intel there. Glad we could lock you in and sit you down. I know you're a busy man heading all over the country. Chad Simmons, appreciate you dropping by today on the Inside Scoop.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
Well, you've made it to the end of today's video, but there's hundreds more videos on the On3 Recruits channel for you to check out. And also, while you're here, hit subscribe.